Pictures up.
Last looks. Rolling.
And action.
Welcome to the Last Looks podcast, Jason.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited.
Yes, me too. Okay, now I want you to finish this sentence for me, okay?
All right, what you got?
Once upon a time, there was a little boy named Jason, and when he grew up, he wanted to be...
A stuntman.
You wanted to be a stuntman?
I did. I mean, like when I was a kid, I wanted to be a stuntman. And then it wasn't until my senior year that there was a guy, there was a guy that came to our school. He's a motivational speaker. And everyone kind of knew what they were doing. They're all going off to junior college. And I had no idea what I wanted to do. So this guy he was a producer at 20th Century Fox, but he lost everything to cocaine. So this was a don't do drugs speech.
Yeah.
And so at the end of his don't do drugs speech, he had behind the scenes footage of aliens. And it was Stan Winston's guys mocking up the Queen Alien and garbage bags and broomsticks. And it just blew my mind. And I knew that's what I want to do. So I kind of tracked him down and said, do you know anyone? And he gave me all these shops. And so I contacted all the shops and they said, go to school, kid. So I found a school in the back of Fangoria magazine and 30 years later, here we are.
That's awesome. So just to go back to the stunt thing, how did you know that was a job? Like what
The Fall Guy.
you...
I mean, that's classic 80s television. And I saw it, thought, oh, that's amazing. I mean, I think I've always kind of been drawn to film and the arts and stuff. And I think, just seeing that, there was that, and there was an episode of Wonder Woman, and it was actually Lynch. I think his name is David Lynch. Not David Lynch, the director, but Lynch. And he had this burn. It was actually a physical burn, I think. But I thought it was makeup, and I thought it looked so good. And I don't know, I've kind of always been drawn to the makeup side of things too. So
that means that you grew up in LA, if this guy's coming from...
No, I actually grew up in Federal Way, which is a little suburb of Seattle. So it's going to be between Seattle and Tacoma.
Okay. So they're bringing this guy in from like Hollywood to...
I have no idea how he ended up doing a speech at our high school, but some Hollywood. I mean, I think it was less about the Hollywood, and it was probably something like McDonald's and Dare, don't do drugs kind of thing. Right.
Yeah, but that's pretty cool.
But it was just, I mean, it was one of those things where it hit me so hard, and I knew exactly at that moment that I was doing it. And I had a buddy that I was trying to talk into doing it. He was kind of artsy as well. Like we had a pottery class, but our teacher allowed us to sculpt. And he was kind of with me in that. So I'm like, let's do this. Let's go. And we applied for the school. And we got in. And then on the day we're supposed to drive to LA, I have my futon in the back of my truck. I'm ready. I go up to his house. And I'm like, all right, let's do this. Let's go. And he said, I can't. I'm like, what do you mean you can't? And he goes, I'm making $9.30 an hour as a cashier. I can't. I mean, like, it's too good. I can't leave it. And I was like, are you kidding? We're gonna make millions. So I drove all the way down to California alone, and went to school for 3 months. Started working in low budget horror films.
That's so gutting.
Yeah. Kind of crazy.
Did you have anywhere to stay or anything like that when you got to LA? Like, did you know anybody?
No, I didn't know anybody. I took out a loan for school and a loan to live, and just thought I'll figure it out, before then. So, and then the first day of school, I met Wes Wofford. Do you know Wes?
I don't.
Yeah, he's a good guy. He was prosthetic artist for a long time, worked with Greg Canham, and then now he's doing fine artwork in North Carolina.
Oh, awesome. Amazing. Yeah. So what school did you go to?
It was called the Institute of Studio Makeup. there were, it's just a handful of people. So it was like 8 people in the class.
Oh wow.
Um, yeah. And you just kind of get the basics. I mean, it was like learning to make molds with playing cards. And um, it just kind of got you enough to, be hired as a, $50 a day guy at John
Mm.
Beekler's. So that's
Yeah,
kind of,
yeah.
where I got my start.
So was that like a year course
It was,
or?
just a 3-month intensive. So it was 8 hours a
Oh,
day.
yeah.
Um, and then we'd go to school for 8 hours, and then we'd go home and build or work on whatever we were working on. And yeah, 3 months.
So how did you make your contacts and everything from then? Like how were you getting those low budget jobs?
Well, it was work through the shops. So I think John Beaker was probably scouring the shops for low paid individuals that would do anything. Uh,
Mm.
and I was one of them. So I was like, I'm ready to go work on Carnosaur 2 or Metal Beast 3. Yeah.
Yeah, 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 yeah. And so you were working at one particular shop or you're working at different shops or like,
I mean, I worked at Beekler's for some time, and then I kind of, the work ran out, and there was a kind of a moment there where the loan was due. I was starting to have to pay back, and there wasn't
mm,
money coming in, so it was kind of a big decision to make because I was pretty much starving and homeless.
mm,
So at some point, I was sleeping in the back of my car, and I was ready to go home. I was like, Dad, what do I do? It's like I can't even afford a burrito from Taco Bell. And
yeah,
he's like, well, can it get any worse? And I was like, I mean, I can get sick, but I mean, for the most part, no, I don't think it could. And he goes, then you got nothing to lose. Just stick it out. I was like, all right. Not what I
were
want,
you yeah, you're
but
expecting him to go, come home,
come
son,
on.
come
Well,
home.
he did. He followed it up with, "You can always come home." That's
Yeah,
that's the easy out.
yeah, yeah.
But you got nothing to lose. Stick it out. So I did, and it was the best
Wow.
advice I could have got because shortly after started working at Tony Gardner's, and then kind of that just evolved into Greg Canham and all the other shops that I worked at.
Yeah. And so what was one of the first, I guess, first projects you were on set that you remember seeing maybe the change from the lower budget into something like, oh, this is the real deal?
Yeah, from lower. Um, I think it was probably Tony Gardner's. There was he was always working on some decent projects. So
Yeah.
and I was still really fresh, and I think it was probably around 96 or 97. Tony got Warriors of Virtue, and Warriors of
Awesome.
Virtue was it was a 5 doctors from Denver. Their father owned the largest toy manufacturer in Hong Kong, so they were essentially making a 2-hour commercial for these toys they wanted to build, and it was all these kung fu fighting kangaroos. And
Oh,
so
wow.
we built we built all the animatronics, and I mean I didn't. I was fresh, new, but
Yeah.
incredible guys building these beautiful kangaroo suits, and we went over to China for 6 months, I think.
Wow.
And yeah, and it was incredible being that young and kind of thrown into, well, one, traveling too was
Mm.
incredible. China, I'd done very little traveling at that point, so to travel to do what we do. I was also Taft Hartley and played a rhino in the film. It's it was a kung fu fighting rhino, because
Amazing.
we knew what when they were doing the auditions and stuff, and Tony was trying to kind of fit us in anywhere he could. So me and another guy
Mm.
played kind of these sideline characters. It was fun. It was a lot of fun.
It's so funny. I feel like you effects guys always get pulled into doing something like
Well,
that.
yeah, I mean, it's the side hustle because it's either SAG or puppeteering,
That's pretty awesome. You were at that point, were you doing stuff in the shop, but then also on set as well, or maybe not so much on set at that point?
No, I mean, that early on, even then, I was on set. I mean, I think they would take hands. It also wasn't as strict, on low
Mm,
budgets. You didn't have union issues. At least
yeah.
I don't remember them back in the day. But yeah, we one of the first films I worked on was this. It was a horror film where there's a wood mannequin that comes to life,
Mm,
and so we had built this foam constructed suit and foam latex head. And I was 18 and I was so excited to be on set and doing this makeup. And there was another guy that was a lot older, a lot more experience, and he just didn't care. So at the end of the day, when there's big holes in the suit and needed repair, I'd stay up all night. And I was like, this is great. And I think, that kind of effort was the directors and the producers saw that. So when it was time to sell the film, they're like, "We're going to Milan to sell this at MeFed. Do you want to come?" And I was like, "Yeah, absolutely." So I mean, that was literally one of my first jobs,
to do what?
to just put the guy in the suit to kind of
Oh,
to promote the film.
oh, cool.
Yeah,
Okay, that's awesome.
yeah,
Oh, nice.
and that also gave me the bug for traveling.
Mm.
Ooh.
I do wonder, like, I don't remember when I thought about getting into this industry. I don't know if I ever assumed that travel kind of came with it. I don't know. I don't know if I ever thought about it. Did you?
Yeah,
Like, was
no,
that in your mind?
no. It was
No.
nothing was in my mind. When I came down here, it was just I had seen that stuff, didn't realize that that was a job that someone could do.
Mm,
I just kind of didn't think about it. I just jumped in, and I think through half of my career, I was just still flying like, this is great, but no real direction. I had not decided to own a shop. I didn't even want to apply on set as much as because there was shop work, which I was so interested in the build and the different
hmm.
materials and creating the different effects. But the set thing didn't interest me until much later on, when I was like, well, I want to see it through. We built this
Yeah.
stuff, so now I want to see it on someone.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
I think it slowly evolved into that. I think the
Mm,
first part of my career, it was just kind of like young kid on set. I mean, the first job I did, the very first job, was a Roger Corman film. It
mm,
was these shipwrecked Navy guys. They land on this island where there's cave women
yeah.
and dinosaurs. It was called
Okay.
Dinosaur Island, and it's basically porn with dinosaurs. I, I
Of
was
course.
I
Awesome.
18. I was 18. We were shooting on David Carradine's ranch, and there
Yeah.
David had this, ranch style house with all windows in the front, and he's just kind of prancing around naked. We're shooting like a night shoot. I mean, I'm like, everything blew my mind at that age. I was just like, this is crazy.
What is
Oh,
happening?
I'm getting paid. Yeah. So, and I think it rode that way for a while. It's like and then I met up with Steve Johnson. And Steve
Mm,
Johnson was, I mean, the guy's crazy, but he's got a passion for life and living, and I admired that. So it was like we were doing effects, but we were also traveling the world and like just partying, being crazy, and it was a great time in my life. But then after that, it was all right. Well, I did that. Now
mm,
I want to get back into this, and so then it was like more focused and driven, and I was like, now I do want to get on set. I want to see this stuff through, and I kind of want to just really get into the build of it and the materials and like how can we make this better and the detail work. I really got
mm.
obsessed with the detail of everything. Um, yeah.
So, when you were working in the shop, at that stage, was there anything that you were specifically drawn to? Were you doing one thing more than others, or
No, I think John Beekler's, you're just kind of so new that you're just doing anything they say. It's like
right?
put latex in that, clean that, do that. Everything. But then as I kind of started working my way up, Tony Gardner's, I was really good at making molds. So then I became
Okay,
mold shop supervisor.
yeah,
And then when you're in that kind of supervising position, you kind of start supervising more. So then I started coordinating for um, Optic Nerve and, and then Greg Canham. And so I kind of was always in that kind of supervisor position, and it was less hands-on, more kind of supervising.
right.
But I loved the hands-on. And then when I started working at Christian Tinsley's, it was a lot of both. I was able to kind of supervise, but also paint and play and build and stuff, which was amazing. And then, soon after that, I started my own company.
Okay, so what are some deciding factors there? Like what brought that on?
Well, I had always done little side jobs here and there, just kind
Mm-hmm.
of almost buddy work. And I had read an article. This producer I'd worked with was going to do a film with Daniel Radcliffe and Paul Dano, and it had something to do with a dead body.
Oh
And,
yeah,
I
that's
just
Swiss Army Man. Is that
Swiss
what that
Army,
is?
Swiss
Yeah,
Army.
yeah.
So, and I just reached out to her and I said, if you need a dead body, I'm your guy. And
Mm,
she's like, "That's great. I got to introduce you to the Daniels," and I had no idea who the Daniels were. And
mm-hmm.
I saw the video, Turned Down for What? Have you
Yeah.
seen that video? And
You
I
know what? I haven't. I totally
oh,
know the
you
song,
should
but
watch.
yeah, I
Yeah,
haven't
you
seen
should
it.
watch the video.
Okay.
It's it's them. Um,
Okay.
and I said, whatever those guys do, I want to be a part of it because of that
Right.
music video.
Okay.
So I met with them and I read the script. Actually, I was reading the script on my way to New York. So we kind of
Mm-hmm.
talked about it. We talked about the film, met the guys, and they described the opening sequence of the film, which is just bonkers. And I read the script, and it was uh, it's out there. It's so out there. But the way that the guys tell the story,
Mm,
and they actually had the whole film scored before the film, so they're describing this opening scene and they're playing the music, and it's just like you can't help but get excited about it. And then
yeah.
so I got to New York and I wrote them. I said, "What's wrong with you guys?" Dot dot dot. I'm in, and they said, and that was it. And so we did Swiss Army Man. Swiss Army Man was the first film for Hamerfex. So I
Amazing.
started the company. It was 2017.
Okay. So you're still pretty fresh.
Pretty fresh, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It's been a strange ride because just the way everything kind of unfolded with COVID and
Mm,
the strike. Now, I mean, COVID, we were up and running, and we were. I think it was pretty busy before that, and we were fortunate enough to get a lot of hand-me-down work.
mm-hmm.
So anything that Jason Collins or Vincent couldn't handle, they would
Mm.
pass off to me. And I was like,
Oh, that's
this,
awesome.
this is great.
Yeah.
So we were able to stay afloat for a while, and then COVID hit,
Mm,
and I didn't know if we were going to survive that. So, but it didn't take long. Once I got the protocols in place,
mm,
the work just started flooding in, and it was the work we were getting from other producers that we had met, and it was also some hand-me-down work. So it was such a crazy time in the industry, and a crazy time for the shop. We were just growing rapidly and doing bigger and bigger shows, and eventually we got this place right around the time we were doing, like, right at the beginning of Oppenheimer.
oh, right. I do remember walking in there and going, "Oh, this is slick." So it's because it was so new.
Yeah, well, it's like it's I debated, usually the shops are kind of relegated to the industrial parks, and we used to be over by the Burbank Airport,
Oh yeah.
Sun Valley, but
Mm-hmm.
it's this is a nice place. And my wife was just like, no, 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 this is good. You want a place that the director can come in and feel comfortable, the
Mm.
producers could come in and feel comfortable. Um, and so we did. We got it. I think it was a good choice.
That's awesome. Does your wife work with you?
She does behind the scenes. Yeah, she's
Mm.
she'll read the scripts, to help me with breakdowns and stuff like that.
Oh, that's
She's
awesome.
she's kind of the hidden partner. She's the
Yeah, yeah.
backbone of the company. But like
Oh, I love that.
all the design stuff is all her. She's we came in. This place had good bones, but she was the one
Mm.
that's kind of like she's like, there's no posters. You're not putting any posters up. And so like you'll see all the names, the logos of the shows.
Yeah.
That's there, which I thought was a brilliant idea. It turned out great having the wall, and it'll just kind of keep growing. Uh,
Yeah. I remember seeing that and thinking that was pretty cool.
yeah, we don't have displays. It's like a really boring shop for people to come into. Like they get all excited. Hey, can we come to your shop? And they come here and there's nothing really to look at. So, no.
Well, I guess it depends on your aesthetic. Like I liked it because I was like, oh, it's nice and clean and tidy and just there's a simplicity to it that helps you to be able to focus on what you're there to focus on instead of the noise of
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah.
Yeah.
Dirty
I
and
think,
stuff.
yeah,
Well,
everyone's brains work differently. So,
yeah. But back in the day, like what I grew up with, all the shops had these massive displays.
hmm
They're so cool, but they're also dusty. And I was like, "Ugh, I don't know." But
yeah,
also in my
guys,
mind,
clean up your displays.
yeah, in my mind, I just was like calculating how much it would cost to pay the guys to do that. Um, And I was like, it doesn't make any sense. But back in the day, they would do that. They would just you would kind of hold on to your team, and it doesn't
mm,
matter how many shows, like how many months you're down, you would
mm,
hang on to your core guys because you didn't want to lose them to another shop.
mm,
And so, I would see these guys with their massive machines in motion, and the shops used to be huge, like Steve
yeah.
Johnson's shop, Stan Winston's. I mean, those are massive shops with all these people. So it's this huge machine in motion, and it's like you got to feed that beast, and if you don't, I mean, either that, or it's eating into your profits. Yeah, you're going to crash. And I mean, working there, I remember thinking that that's
Mm,
how does that make sense? That doesn't make sense. How do you keep all those guys on all that time when we have no work? And so I think that's why I run my company so lean. Like
right.
there's usually, I mean, like a lot of the shops, even the smaller shops, have much more infrastructure than we do. They have coordinators, they have runners, they have whatever. And it
So, what do
helps.
you do? Like, how do you work it?
We just make it work. It's like if I
You just like hire when needed.
exactly, yeah. It's
Right.
like we have our core people. We have
Mm,
our core sculptors and stuff, and I'll do everything to keep them on as long as we can. But when something like the strike comes up, it's like
mm,
we didn't know, and I wasn't going to drive the company to the ground. It was basically like, sorry guys, I understand if you have to go work somewhere else. We have to go dark until we figure out what's going on.
yeah,
You
yeah.
know, you could lose the guys, but even then, it's like, okay, then we'll find someone else. We'll find more talent, and we'll hopefully they'll come back around to us when they finish up. But
Yeah,
I
yeah.
like it. I like having like kind of people coming in rotating because you'll find new talent that you can just bring a new look to Hamer effects. It's like if you have the same fabricator forever, you kind of get used to that look. It's like I've seen that in the last three projects that we did. whereas someone else comes in and they got this whole new idea of fabricating or like new
Mm,
techniques, and you go like, "Ooh, I
mm.
wouldn't have thought of that. That's very clean, cool." Um, so I think it's good to get new blood in here and there, shake things up.
Yeah, I hear that a lot with shops that people kind of jump from shop to shop, and it's so funny because in the outside world, you would be like, "Oh no, that's not a good look. You can't be going from here to there and jumping
Yeah,
around, and you've got to have loyalty and this and that." And it's just like, well, no, because it's such a creative space that if you don't move, you may get a little stagnant and
yeah.
same old, as you're saying. So yeah, it's good
No,
to know that it's kind of okay to do.
it is. It is. I mean, we're all freelance, and it's like,
Mm,
yeah. But if you want to hold on to someone, you will.
yeah.
You'll make it comfortable for them. You'll, give them a good salary. Um, yeah. We make it work.
So when you are looking to hire crew, like what are some key things that you are kind of looking for?
Um, I like to see one passion.
Yeah.
It's like I want to see. Like I don't care if you're not that great at
Mm-hmm.
everything,
Yeah.
but if you show kind of the drive to learn, I think that's the biggest thing. Because I feel,
Mm,
it's like you can come in here, and we have our own ways that we like to mold. We have our own ways that we like to do everything. So we're going to
yeah.
teach you those things. So if
Mm,
you have the kind of the basics and you show the passion, then I know that I can kind of tailor you into what we like. And
right.
we also don't, kind of the bigger shops you would used to get kind of pigeonholed into, like you're a mold maker or you're a sculptor. Here, as many people as I can hire that can take something from start to finish, I will, because I can
Mm-hmm.
bounce them anywhere along the way. It's like, okay, help me with the live cast. All right, can you mold that today? Can you sculpt that today? One, I think it keeps it fresh. I mean, everyone's kind of
Mm,
like, it's exciting because you're always kind of rotating around and doing stuff. I mean, we're going to put the key people in the places we need to, but
yeah.
it's nice because when you're when you're budgeting, if you're sitting there going like, okay, well, I've got a sculptor for 6 days and I've got a mold maker for trying to figure that out, and then like, okay, well, I only budgeted 4 days for this, so I got to drop this guy, or in order to make this make sense. So
Yeah.
instead of doing that, it's like, well, okay, you jump over here now, and you'll be the 2-man days for this, and you'll be the 4-man days for this, and it's just it kind of it works. I
Mm.
like it that way.
And do you think as the owner of a shop, it is in your best interest to know how to do everything?
Yes, I mean I do. I think it's important to know everything. I think it's
Yeah.
because then you're coming from a place of knowledge.
Mm.
It's like I'm open to new ways of doing everything,
Oh
but
yeah.
at least I have my way of doing it. It's like I know this way and I know this works. So
Mm.
I'm always going to push that until someone else comes along with more experience and says, "No, there's a better way. Let's do it
Mm.
like this." Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, but yeah, and also as the owner, knowing your limits. It's like there's so many better sculptors than me, but I can rough something in and say that's what I want, detail it, and I'm gonna get there much quicker than trying to tell them. Say like,
Yeah.
okay, well, a little less weight here, more weight here, and same thing with painting too. I mean, it's like being able to just pick up the gun and just do it yourself. I mean, it's important to me because like my name's on the door, so I want it to look a very
Mm.
specific way. So even if I have a really good painter in here, sometimes I'll finish it off or I'll start it and I'll hand it to them. Um,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, that's awesome. I was going to ask, are you in the union?
yeah, yeah.
Okay. So how did that come about?
Well, so when I was working for Tinsley,
Hmm.
we were doing a lot of work on American Horror Story, and
Oh, okay, cool.
Aaron Kruger was
Hmm.
Kruger McCash.
Hmm.
Was the head of the department, and Mike was working at Christians as well, and so they were like, let's get Mike on, let's figure out how we can do this, and let's get Jason out there, and so we were kind of orchestrating it in a way that I would get my days, and
Awesome.
Aaron was so great at that. I mean, like I don't know how many people she's put through the union or got, days. But she got us our days. Well, she actually, so we did our days. I got my days, but there
Hmm.
was a union rep that said I didn't have a waiver. And so for 3 years, I think, they didn't allow me in. It wasn't until kind of everyone came on board. So Fox came on board, and like Aaron and Christian, everyone kind of like wrote letters and said, no,
Hmm.
he needs to be in. So I think it was the third year that we finally got in.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Ugh. I feel like it's very rare for somebody to have a like really straight from A to B kind of
Yeah.
story about getting into the union. And sometimes I'm always scared to ask because it's just like 13 years later.
Yeah. Yeah. Maybe that's a good thing.
Yeah.
It's just if you want it bad enough,
Hmm.
you'll figure it out.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
but yeah, you'll hear stories of people just getting in on a whim, or
Hmm.
I was working on this show and it turned and I got in, and you're like, you can't put on a bald cap. So how? Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, no, I know.
So there are some,
we,
yeah,
yeah, it is interesting. I remember talking to a producer once and they said something and I can't remember what it was exactly, but I just had to be like, I'm sorry, just because someone's in the union, it doesn't mean they know what they're doing.
mhm, yeah,
Like it's not like they are, rigorously tested to get in, like and have their skills looked at or anything. I was just like,
mhm.
it just means that
I think
they
they
could have,
test back. Those tests. They force you to do an old age, a character, a bald cap. I mean, you were really kind of forced to show your skill sets. Um,
yeah,
but those went away.
they did. And do you find, oh, well, so you got into the union before you opened your shop?
Yes,
Oh,
yes.
that's good.
So
Okay,
I was,
that's
yeah.
great.
So I was already in the union a couple years. Yeah, a couple years before, right? 3 or 4 years before.
Do you feel like that would be like a bit of a hindrance to not be in the union if you had the shop? Like, do you feel like that would be difficult, or you'd be able to work it out?
Yeah, I mean, I think ultimately you would work it out. I mean,
Yeah,
yeah. I think there's probably a lot of shop owners that aren't in the union or have no desire to be on set.
right.
But I think as you start doing it, I mean, even early on, I would see things that we did, that we built, and we were so excited about, and then
Mm,
just when they got to set, it wasn't executed as well as it could have been, and you're kind of like, oh, God, we
yeah,
worked so hard on that,
yeah,
and
disappointing.
so yeah, then then you want to see it through, and so yeah, you got on set and you got to see it through, and that's I think the most rewarding part is being able to take something start to finish, seeing
Mm,
it on set, and it working.
yeah,
Not
yeah,
everything works, but when it does,
yeah.
that's
Do you have any, like, is it a thing that people, I feel like I'm such a control freak, I'd want to do this, but like with what you're saying about that disappointment that can kind of happen through things not being executed, maybe the best way that they could be, is there anything in, like, do you ever only take jobs if you're able to kind of see things through, or no, that's just like a
no.
stupid move, like you
No,
can't
I
do
mean,
that?
I mean,
Yeah.
I am at the end of the day a business owner, so it's got to make
Yeah.
sense for the business. I mean, we just
Yeah.
did, after the strike, we had nothing. We didn't work 7 months, So
Mm.
uh, Mike Hill approached us. He was doing Guillermo del Toro's Frankenstein, and he
Yeah.
said, "Would you make the pieces for us?" Um, so I mean, Mike is the art. He's the artist. So we would essentially
Mm.
just be making the cores, the molds, casting all the silicone pieces.
Yeah.
And I was totally fine. I mean, we'll have our shows that we do our stuff. This is all about the money, keeping the shop afloat, keeping people employed. So it definitely saved us.
Yeah.
And I'll have my ego on my shows and want to like, this is ours, we did this.
Mm.
That's yours. You get it. I'll help you as much as I can. It just made sense to do that. And we just help out Jamie Kellman on
Mm-hmm.
his project, and that's his thing. He's the prosthetics designer on that. He's the head of it.
Yeah.
And we're just here to kind of facilitate, because I think every job you're going to learn something, and so Mike has a certain way of doing things, Jamie has a certain way of doing things, and I think because you can kind of get locked into your system.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's good to kind of see how other people are doing stuff. So you're like, oh yeah, I like that. I think I might take that. That's a good idea.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know?
Or you see something and you're like, ooh, not going
Ooh,
to do that.
I would do that. Yeah, 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 yeah. There's a lot of that.
Yeah, you learn from other people's mistakes. It's quite
Yeah,
nice.
yeah.
But let's chat about some of your career highlights thus far. So, what are some favorite projects of yours?
Faves. Well, I mean,
Yeah.
Swiss Army Man is definitely up there. I mean, Swiss Army Man was at a time where I was thinking about getting out of the business.
Oh wow. Okay.
I'm, I'm, I was sick of it. I was sick of, um, just the politics on set and like the union stuff and not
Mm,
getting in the
mm,
union
mm.
and I was just kind of like just working for people and having to deal with different personalities. I was just kind of like I think I was fed up, and
Yeah.
it's like this came along, and my wife is like, "You like what you do.
Mm.
It's the people that you're working with. You don't want to do that. You don't want to. You need to move on from that. You need to start your own shop." And like
Yeah.
the idea of owning a shop, it was like kind of being in other guys' shops and seeing this kind of massive machine in motion. I was like, I don't want to do that. There's no way I would
Yeah.
do that. It's stupid. It's like I used to see these guys and I think that's a bad idea. And she goes, I really think you should. I think you should own your shop. You basically run other people's shops. You should just do it, and you have
Yeah.
the skill set to to kind of do every aspect of it, and that's a rare thing. So at that point it was a natural progression, and Swiss Army Man was like the first show, and that was like a tier one project, and it
Mm-hmm.
was, I mean, you weren't getting paid any. I think I was $22 an hour to be head of the makeup department, and but
Where were you shooting that?
we shot in Half Moon Bay. We shot in the Redwood Forest. We shot
Oh
some
wow.
stuff down
Okay.
here.
Oh
But
wow.
top down, the producers, the directors, everyone on that team, there was such a camaraderie that
Mm.
I didn't feel on any other set. And I think it was like, this is what it is. This is like creating. This is what I miss. This is what it used to be. That excitement
Yeah.
of building stuff and having people appreciate your work,
Mm.
and just not having to deal with the drama because it was my company. And so there's not a middleman, to deal with or to kind of uh, cloudy the conversation. It was just me, and it was fun again. And so I think that one is definitely is one of the best experiences.
Yeah.
Another incredible experience was a film we just finished not too long ago, right before the strike, was Queer, and It's a Luca Guadagnino film, and it's a Burroughs novel from the 50s.
Okay.
Daniel Craig plays kind of this Burroughs character, and you got like let's see, I remember the other actors, Starkey and Jason Schwartzman, and
Mm-hmm.
so he wanted kind of these beatnik characters from that generation.
Awesome.
So he had Jason as this kind of Ginsberg character. So it was kind of in a heavy suit, and we made these fake arms, and it was kind of like this full coverage. And
Awesome.
it was, I mean, he was a gem. He was so sweet. And then we turned Daniel Craig into an 83-year-old, and
Oh, wow.
and that too was, such a great evolution, because
Mm-hmm.
I think he had had a bad experience before, and we were out in Brooklyn live casting and scanning him, and he's like, yeah, sometimes this it doesn't work, and then we'll do digital, and I was like, well, I mean, I think we can get it to work. And he's like,
You're
"Really?"
like, oh God, oh.
And she was really kind of apprehensive, and we went back, and we did our test, or like we built some prosthetics to put on him. We went back out there, and as we're putting the pieces on, it's like you put the neck on, and he's like, oh wow, that moves well. And then it's like you put
Mm.
the ball cap, the hair in it, and cheek, and it's just like you slowly see him like, oh my god. And then by the end of it, he's like so excited, and he's like, I could go down to the lobby right now and nobody would recognize me. And I was
Yeah.
like, yeah. And so, and then he kind of like evolved into the character, and you could just see him starting to hunch and do his thing, and it was awesome. So and it shot in Italy, so we shot 2 weeks doing Jason's makeup. I had Richard Redliffson out there, and we uh, did such a fun makeup on him, and there's some other character stuff in there, but yeah, that was definitely a highlight.
Yeah, that's very cool. Did I'm just thinking of his eyes and how bright and sparkly they are. Did you guys use lenses or anything to kind of
Yeah,
age his eyes?
yeah, we
Yeah.
did. We kind of yellow them out a little bit,
Yeah, yeah.
fade
Because
that. Yeah,
imagine those bright sparklers
they are.
coming through.
Yeah, you can't hide it. You know,
Mm-mm.
it just screams youth.
Yeah, yeah. So is there something that because in the position that you're in and so many different jobs come in, are there certain types of makeups that you absolutely get uber excited about and others that you're like, oh, another one of those?
Yeah, I mean, I think I've always kind of leaned into the realism. We do a
Mm-hmm.
lot of bodies,
Yeah.
and and I think it's like in the 90s, when people do bodies, it was still, I mean, I think 90s is right around the time they switched to silicones. People started playing with silicone. It's like, ooh, look at how translucent it is. But even the
Yeah.
latex bodies, it was just like, wow, that looks so good. And it would be
Mm,
like a punched brow, but then just like blunt cut, and like a really stipply paint job, and you're like, that's brilliant, looks so good. But then, as you do it over the years, and you're like, no, the brows don't have a blunt cut. They're tapered. So then you start, punching with mink hair, and it's
mm,
like you see, it's like you start just honing in on all the details. It's like the eyes. I mean, eyes are a huge thing. And so um, for a long time, you couldn't get a good eye. Like Kazu had a great eye because it had a
mm.
really soft limbus, which is that kind of that ring. And most of the
Okay.
people casting, so they'd either paint, and so you got to soften it with a paint job, or they were
Mm.
like printing the little the pupil stickers and then put it on. But then you have
Oh,
the hard
okay.
edge. But now people have figured it out, how to cast that and soften it naturally, and but that the evolution of that, and like like all the details. So we kind of be not became known for it, but we were definitely we were excelling at bodies, and kind of, yeah, recreating human, um, but also, like, I think we applied that to the prosthetic side of things.
Right.
I had run Christian's shop for like 15 years. I mean, like
Mm.
when Christian started, and he started in his garage with swordfish, and I was helping him make this John Travolta mold, and you know, to see his evolution. But
Yeah.
Christian was always really good at the kind of the fine details as well. And so having kind of the prosthetic backbone that we did,
Mm.
because you know, it's like I worked there, Hero worked there, you know, and a couple of other artists along the way worked there. And so I think we kind of would see what a good appliance is. I mean, Christian was like back at Steve Johnson's was one of the first that were trying to pioneer the silicone makeups, and
Wow.
and so yeah, it was great to kind of be involved with all that.
Mm.
And then Wes Wofford, he's another one that I just admire because he's always kind of pushing the envelope. And he was actually got a technical achievement award um, for the first silicone appliances with Greg Canham. But this is back
Okay.
in the day when we didn't have the technology and it wasn't platinum silicone. So they were using latex as a barrier and backing it with a tin silicone. And, you know, it was always kind of behind closed doors, but they figured it out. And I was like, oh my God,
Right.
it's amazing. You know, so yeah, so I think we kind of we're excelling at kind of the aging stuff and the kind of the natural human bodies, I guess. So like
Yeah. Yeah.
if you asked us to do a demon, we could do a demon. We've done a demon, but you know, there's other shops that really kind of lead with that. You know,
Mm.
they do demons all the time. They do zombies all the time.
Mm-hmm.
If you asked us to do it, it's like, okay, now you got to put our thinking caps on. Like, what does a zombie look like? And, you know,
I love it. I want to just touch on how much you're talking about the details. So, because this is something that's kind of, I think I took it for granted, possibly. Um, that I think I naturally tend to notice the details,
yeah,
and then working with others that just don't see the
yeah,
details, and
yeah,
it's like how do you not
yeah,
like, and I'm trying to kind of work out, I suppose, if it's like something that is learned, like you, as
yeah,
time goes on, you do start looking, like zooming in
yeah,
almost to understand,
yeah.
or if it just is always there with some people. Like, how do you think you kind of came into that? Was it
I
a
think it was
time
always,
thing,
yeah, it was. It
or
was definitely, you know, the natural evolution of my career was kind of, you know, it's crazy this, and we're just doing this, and we're in Hollywood, and this is fun.
mm,
It wasn't until, you know, that I really, you know, opening the shop, maybe before that, but opening the shop and just kind of getting into, yeah, the details of it all and just wanting to make everything better, and like, why doesn't this look real?
yeah,
Why is this failing? You know,
mm,
oh, it's the gravity. It doesn't have the gravity. It's just like there's so many things that could lead you astray on a makeup. And you know, it takes all stars to align to actually pull something off. Excuse me, because you know, you could have someone that just doesn't have a good face for it, you know,
mm,
for what they're trying to do. Um,
yeah,
you know, Daniel Craig had a very conducive face for an old age. You know, he's kind of a slender guy. He's got great cheekbones. You know, he has a
mm.
little weight in here, deep set eyes. So you have a better palette to begin with.
And he's not 20.
He's not, yeah, yeah, no, he's not.
It's like always when someone's like having to age someone that's
Oh yeah,
like this
no, no,
ridiculously
Oppenheimer.
young,
Come on.
plump. Yeah, I know. I'm just like, what? How
Yeah,
is this
so
even possible?
yeah, yeah, that's. But I think it is. It's a time thing because I vividly remember there was a kid in my grade school, and he just had a bandage on. It was like Halloween. And he had a bandage on, but it had blood. But it looked the way that the blood had kind of seeped through, and it was like there was like a yellow kind of plasma kind of feel to it,
Oh,
browns,
yeah.
and I just remember asking him like, "How'd you do that?" And he goes, "Well, it's just fake blood." And I was like, "No, but how'd you get like the separation between the yellow and the brown, and he goes, well, it
Mm.
just did that. I was like, because that looks real, and
Yeah.
I mean, like it was etched in my mind. Like there's like a just that kind of detail that was, ooh, that makes it. I believe that. That's so
Mm.
cool. And he didn't do anything. He just basically put her on, put the
It's
blood
like
on.
happy accident.
Yeah. Um,
That's
so yeah,
awesome. It
then I
is.
think once kind of the career got a little momentum, and
Mm.
I was passionate about it again, because I think the passion went away for a while there, because my focus wasn't film and makeup. It was just like, this is a lifestyle, this is a party, this is whatever. So
Yeah.
once I got back on track and started kind of focusing on the makeup, then it was really kind of starting to hone in on what works and why is it cool and why are they good? What makes their work so good?
Mm.
You look at Kazu, and it's like, I mean, I think everybody now dissects his work, and it's like, okay, or even Marino, like, oh well, he look at how heavy his texture is. Oh my God, look at how it's so heavy. And I mean, that's something we learned on Oppenheimer. It's like
Mm.
we did a couple test makeups where it's just like, it looks flat, it looks so flat, and we felt it was heavily textured
Right.
for us. But as soon as you pump that up, and it's just, you learn that over the years. It's like, what's going to make it that much cooler? What's that much realer? It's like dialing in color of silicone is such a key thing, because if you
Yeah.
start off with the wrong color,
Mm.
it makes it so much harder to get back into the realism of it. But if you start with that perfect color,
Right.
it just almost goes away naturally, blends in naturally, and you're just like putting a couple colors on.
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome. I do say, like, I every now and again I do wig workshops, and one of the things that I tell everyone in the workshop is, from now on, every time you're watching something and you see a wig, I want you to figure out why you know it's a wig.
Yeah,
Yeah. It's just like, don't be like, oh, that's a wig. It's just like, well, how do you know? Like,
yeah,
what's giving it away?
yeah,
What are those things? It's just like, zoom in on those details and figure it out.
yeah. It's like the
So
hairline is
it's,
too dense. It's like, what are you doing?
yeah, yeah,
Break that up.
so
Yeah,
many things.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So I would like to know, Jason, what and who inspires you? Because you're an artist, so I want to know.
Yeah, I mean, I think I mentioned, Wes was a big inspiration for me.
Yeah.
He, I went to makeup school. We met first day, and it was kind of
Mm.
like best buds since then. Like, all right, where you live?
Yeah.
And he's like, I'm living in a motel. Like, where you
Yeah.
living? And I was like, I'm living in a studio I can't afford. And he's like, you want to you want a room? And so we got the studio together. I slept on my futon, he slept on the floor, but we just like worked 10, 12 hours a day. It was like school, and come home and play, and sculpting and painting.
Oh,
um,
that's awesome.
but then, just like, I mean, he had the drive in the
Mm.
beginning, from the get-go. To where me, it was like, this is just fun, and we're just doing this, and I'm along for the ride. But it was
Yeah.
really impressive to kind of see him just kind of take off. It's like
Mm-hmm.
he knew he wanted to do it from the get-go. And I mean, like, he took off so quick, and he's so talented. And then like, got out. He hated the industry. He was like, I'm done, I did it,
Right.
out. And so now he just does fine art, and he has this beautiful barn, I think North Carolina, and just does art all day.
Well, it's nice to know he's still, yeah, doing
Yeah, he's
art.
still, yeah,
That's awesome.
absolutely. I don't think you can, like, fully step away
Mm.
from this if you're passionate. If you're
Yeah,
an
yeah.
artist.
And what kind of inspires you generally?
Uh,
Where do you get your inspiration from?
I love seeing other people that do it and do it well.
Mm-hmm.
We're always we're always looking at what everyone's doing. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, Colin did a cool thing. Did you see what Collins did? You see what Vincent did? The head that Vincent did, and just kind of like picking it apart and saying, why is it cool? I mean,
Yeah, yeah.
we're so excited. Even today, we're doing some stuff for Doctor Odyssey's, like a procedural show,
Hmm.
and uh, and it's intestines. We've done intestines for years, but it's like they don't move well. They don't. They're just like they're kind of like you either cast them, you can cast them solid and they really look fake, or you can fabricate them and they still look fake. But usually you're dumping so much blood on it. But if you look at a surgeries, there's very little blood, and it's kind of like all the organs are pristine and on display. So
Mm-hmm.
it's like let's let's figure out how to do this. I mean, like we haven't actually done it. We've always just kind of taken the shortcut. And the shortcut, like we've taken casing, sausage casing, and filled it full of silicone because you get that natural texture on the inside,
Yeah.
and then you
Yeah,
can
yeah.
put the casing off and bleach it. But there's no way of doing that, casting that hollow, and that's really what it needs is casting it hollow. And so we've never used Gel 2, which is a EcoFlex product, and
Okay.
and so we're like, oh, what's this? And so we're casting them hollow with Gel 2, and it's just like that filled with a gel, which we thickened some Methocel and put it in there. I was like, oh, that feels real. That feels like,
Mm.
and then what can you put on top of it? So if it's a regular blood, it beads up. If it's
Yeah.
silicone blood, you get a little bit more, but then kind of there's more going on in there. So if we're having a pus or fecal matter or whatever, like what is that going to be and how is that going to mix in? And just stupid stuff like that I still get excited about. It's like
Yeah, that's very cool. I
really,
will say, Jason, that, and this is probably some people will find this quite gross, but there was a weekend that we went up to Vashon Island
yeah,
off Seattle to
beautiful.
do, yeah, to do a butchering course. So
Butchering.
yeah, I'm getting there. So and it was pig. So first day was killing and getting the hair off and gutting
Uh-huh.
the pig,
Yeah.
and the second day was butchering, so cutting it up and all the pieces and all that type of stuff. And the first day, and I didn't want to be hands on with that first day stuff. I was just like, oh no, it's all too connected to being, I just saw that alive and now it's like but I will say, when the pig was cut open and the intestines and everything came out and the guts and all that, I have the colors
Yeah.
was so
Yeah.
beautiful.
Such a vibrant yellow and like how do you
There
get
was just these beautiful greens and blues, and like I was just like, oh my goodness, like what? I didn't expect. It's so weird. I think I expected it to be cut open and it just be this mess
blood?
of disgustingness. Yeah, but everything was all in its like packages, and the colors were just amazing, and I was quite kind of taken
Yeah.
by like, why am I finding the inside of this pig so beautiful? But it's fascinating.
Yeah. We did it was No Country for Old Men. I was working at
Hmm.
Tinsley's, and there's a scene where there's the five bodies laying there. And
Yeah.
we had contacted a coroner in New Mexico and said,
Mm.
what would it look like if these bodies were out there for 5 days?
Yeah.
And he sends us pictures, and they look just,
Oh.
it's horrible. I mean, it's just so bloated with gas. The tongue was outside of the face like this. Sorry. Um, the tongue
They come
was
to get you.
easy. It looked like they had just spray painted it flat black, everything.
Wow.
And it was like, that doesn't look real at all. It looks fake.
Right. Yeah.
But it's not. And you'll see some artists now that kind of even will steer toward that because we've always kind of done this Hollywood version.
Mm.
That's it's more kind of acceptable. It's like when we were doing Hannibal, they didn't want the realism of it because someone that would sew their face back on, with so much surgery to replace the face, that skin dries up and falls off, and just the look of it isn't aesthetically pleasing to look at for more than a couple of minutes. So
Right.
you have to do this Hollywood version of it. But you will see these artists now that are leaning into the realism, and I think it's bold, and it's I love it when they do it. When someone will kind of like pull that realism into it.
Yeah, yeah. I'm just going to rewind for a second.
No,
Hannibal, which Hannibal? What are you talking about?
Hannibal, the sequel to Silence of the Lambs.
Okay, so the film.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Okay, cool, cool. That's
yeah,
awesome.
yeah,
Amazing.
yeah, yeah.
So, I mean, well, I guess it's kind of, you may have just answered this question already, but I was just going to say, is there something new that you've learned recently? But I feel like maybe that kind of comes into
Fantastic,
it,
fantastic.
figuring all that
Yeah,
guts out.
yeah. I mean, it's all everything's a learning experience. And we wouldn't get the last job if we hadn't done the job before that.
Mm-hmm.
And it feels like a natural progression because we get this and we kind of figure this out, but we haven't quite got it figured out. And then you want to like you've learned this and you want to apply it to the next show. And
Yeah.
we happen to be lucky enough to where okay, now we can apply it to this. So like Oppenheimer, there's we learned so much on that. There was so many things that kind of we failed in a lot of ways, uh, but we learned so much, and then we immediately got to apply it to this De Niro film. And so De Niro plays two different characters, these gangsters, and you said this is it, this is the show. We get to kind of apply all this stuff to it, but then you learn something on that show, and you're like immediately want to do it on the next. So
Yeah, yeah.
you're
It's so
constant,
true. It's so true.
constantly evolving.
Yeah. And then by the time you actually watch the thing that you
Oh yeah, I know.
that you did, and then you're like, oh, if only I'd done this and this and this.
Yeah, yeah, and that's like that De Niro thing. It's not coming out till 25, and I already feel that way. I'm like, God, if we just had another week, we could have
Yeah, I know.
taken our
Oh,
chin down. Yeah. So,
it's so funny. Yeah, we're our own worst critics, really. I was going to ask you what are some of the things that you find most rewarding about what you do?
um,
You're
well,
like nothing.
no, I think there's a ton. It's being a part of something that is way bigger than our little
Mm,
contribution.
mm-hmm.
Kind of to see your contribution help create that bigger thing. I think
Yeah.
that's really rewarding, especially like I said, when all stars align and you kind of like
Mm,
it just works. There's some things that just work and line up, and so I think being a little cog of those things is cool. I mean, when you're I've been such a uh, you know film geek since I was a kid.
mm,
Just horror films, whatever. It was just fascinated with movies. So to be able to be a part of that, I think that's
yeah.
insanely rewarding. I mean, it's such a cool job. Like
Mm,
everyone looks at what I
true.
do and they go like, "This is you have the best job." I do. I have an incredible job. It's like
Yeah.
I make monsters. I make guts. I make whatever. I make old people, and
Yeah.
and I get paid to do it.
Yeah.
It's cool.
I'm just thinking back to how awesome it is, Jason, that you have your wife there to, at that moment when you could have turned a different direction, she kind of gave you that nudge to get the shop. Like, that's so cool that she could just
And
see that and have the I don't know, the sight to be able to see what was a good direction for you to go on. That's
she's
awesome.
she's much smarter than I am. So
That's good. At
yeah,
least one of you are.
so,
Yeah.
so I'll do anything she says.
I love it. That's awesome. And what is a one piece of advice that was given to you at some point that's really stuck with you?
I think that piece of advice from my dad was definitely a big one. Um,
Yeah.
but I remember, I had it's kind of like after the Steve Johnson era, and like lots of partying, and it was like, okay, now I'm kind of starting to focus. I had done 3 ceremonies of ayahuasca in Peru and 5 ceremonies of Guatemala,
You're
and
digging
I
deep.
was just kind of like, I was on the path. I was like feeling really good. I was like,
Mm,
I'm ready to kind of produce again. I'm ready to like create. And
mm,
I was doing yoga at the time, and there
mm,
was a yoga instructor that said, "How you do anything is how you do everything." And I was
mm,
like, that kind of clicked with me. I was like, because it's
mm,
like if you're just gonna rush through and do something, and it's kind of half-assed, if you'll do it on
mm,
that little thing, you'll do it on the big thing too. So it was kind of like,
mm.
all right, I can, it's like every little job, every task, it's like if you do it right, like if you do this right, you'll do that right.
Yeah,
you know
yeah.
so I think that's stuck. I mean, I like put a quote on the shop wall back there that says that, and the guys, I don't think they get it. I don't think you do everything.
Hasn't quite clicked yet. I
No.
know that like something my dad would always say to me is just like, if you're going to do a job, do it properly.
Yeah, I mean, it's the
Like that
same thing.
was,
It's
it's the
like,
same kind of
see, my
idea. I
dad
think
my dad
it's
said that too, but it didn't
yeah,
click. It took that
mm,
yoga instructor to say, how you do anything is how you do everything. And I was like, oh.
yeah.
So,
That'll piss your dad off. That's
yeah.
it's like I told you that.
Yeah, I told you that. I
You
mean,
listened to some yoga instructor.
yeah. He said it that way. Sorry, Dad.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's okay. So, in your working environment, whether it's in the shop or whether it's at a station that you've set up to do a makeup, what is one tool or product that you just never want to be without?
Mm, I mean, I think my most used tool and the one that I know how to manipulate is
Mm-hmm.
just an H Pache
Okay.
airbrush. I mean, it's
Yeah.
like you can do as much or as little as you want with it, and just by manipulating or the cones or the pressure, like I mean, the way I paint is I paint really fast, and it's just
Mm.
by the thickness of the silicone or the like putting pressure on the tube, the little cup, so that it spatters unevenly as opposed to a nice even. So I just feel like, I mean, I would feel naked on set if I didn't have a Pache,
Yeah.
and it's just
And
the
is that, I
cheapest
know
one.
that there's, what, sorry?
It's just the cheapest one. It's like, you know, I'd never change the cones out really. I use either a 3 or 5, and it's just kind of, it's my baby.
Yeah, they are really affordable. I did
Yeah,
notice that.
yeah.
The but somebody is it is there something to do with that? There is like an original or an older version of it that some people prefer that they've changed it slightly or something to the newer ones, or are they pretty much the same?
I think they're the same. There's
Mm,
there's because why people like the H is you can dial down the pressure and you can open up the
right.
nozzle and it spatters really nicely. So there's guns
Mm-hmm.
that there's guns that will kind of spatter for you, um, but I don't like that. And they
Yeah.
also have like a little gauge, so you don't have to just do it by control. You can kind of gauge down the pressure, makes it easier. You know.
Right, right. Very good. And what one person would you like to hear on the podcast?
Ooh, wow. Um, I don't have you. Have you gone into directors?
No, we just talked to
Only
the hair and makeup people.
hair and makeup.
But
Um,
you know what? I haven't spoken to directors, and I do some bonus episodes, and I recently had an actor on because I wanted to, and he's a pretty busy dude who seems to jump around from show to show to show,
yeah,
and I was just like, well, God, best person to talk to about the vibe in the hair and makeup trailer and what red flags are and
yeah.
how we can kind of, make or break a day for him. So that was cool. But yeah, probably should talk to some type of director about their
I don't know. I mean, I just,
relationship with hair and makeup.
yeah. I mean, you've hit so many already. Some of the like kind of the key players that I would recommend.
Mm.
I mean,
Who would you want to hear? If you could hear somebody.
If I could hear somebody, I mean, like I keep coming back to Wes because he was always kind of 10 steps ahead of me,
Yeah.
with, it's like we got into makeup school at the same time, but he just took off and I was like, wow, that guy, what is he doing? And then, so I always feel like I'm kind of chasing him, and it's been nice because our paths keep crossing. Like he jumped back to film for one thing, and he's like, come out to New Orleans and we'll do it together. And so we
Yeah.
work on this project, and then I had some crazy project called Windy where we made this like 30-foot sea creature and like these underwater puppets and stuff, and I brought him out because he's used to dealing with large sculptures. And so we needed a gantry system to get it into the pool and do all this stuff. And so,
Oh, wow.
yeah, so I think, I mean, he's a great person to talk to just because he's been in the industry and he's, kind of been at the top and then walked away from it. So,
Yeah. Which I think a lot of us are going to have trouble doing at some point.
yeah. Yeah.
That's
I mean,
awesome.
it's scary, with this strike, with COVID, with everything. It's so kind of tumultuous, and you don't. It's like, I mean, I think like, am I going to have to pivot? I mean, is there going to be like this, this shakeup of the industry where I've got to worry about AI? Like, I mean, you read articles where, yeah, they did the makeup the first day and then they digitized it and they did it for the rest of the film
Right.
digitally. Is that what our job is going to become? Am I going to have to, like, what would I do? Like, what would I do if I wasn't doing this?
Dude. Yeah. That's the biggest fucking question. Is like, for me, it's that question. I'm just like, I've got no idea. And be happy. It's not like, because I could do plenty of things, but it's just like, and just feel that satisfaction in the same way. Like, what would that look like?
So Michelle, my wife, she's been writing a lot lately. And when we got back from Italy, she's like, I just want to shoot something. I want to shoot like a short, just to kind of get a feel for it. And so she came in here. She's like, all right, give me a goat head, give me a broken leg, give me a baby. And then she wrote this little thing, put our kids in it, and we shot out in the forest for 3 days. And it was such a cool experience. It was that kind of in the beginning of the your career, where you're so excited about just being on set and like creating and stuff, and you're kind of controlling it again. And so, like, she's like dove head first now into this, and she applied for the AFI women's directing thing, and so I think, in the back of my head, that's my pivot, is like, I'll go work on her stuff.
That's awesome. I love it. Yeah. That's very cool. Okay, and before we wrap, are you ready for a quick fire round of questions in 30 seconds? 30 seconds.
Oh, God. Shit. What do you got? Oh, my God. What?
The correct answer is yes.
Yes. I'm horrible. Okay, this is like any.
It's okay. None of the questions are serious. It's all right.
All right, go for it.
Yeah. I mean, the fact that, not these ones, but at some point, Jason Collins helped me put some of these questions together, so you can understand how ridiculous some of them could truly be. Some of them I don't use of his because they were just too far. I was like, it's too much, Jason. It's too much.
Let's do it. Yeah.
Alrighty. Do you believe in ghosts?
Yes.
Have you seen one?
No.
Have you ever been fired?
I take it back. I have seen one. Not seen.
Oh, God.
I felt one. How about that?
Felt one. Okay.
Right.
Have you ever been fired?
Yes.
Ah, how exciting.
Yes.
Are you prepared for the zombie apocalypse?
No.
Oh, what? Come on.
I'm not. Vincent, I'm going to go to Vincent's house because he's got guns. He's got it all.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for joining me, Jason. This has been a lot of fun.
Yeah.
It's been awesome getting to know you.
Yeah. It'd be good to see you in person soon.
Yeah, soon. Yes, definitely.
All right.